It was written by Thornton Wilder, produced and directed by Tom Jenkins III. In it, you'll see Miss Karen Wilhelmsen, Miss Julie Depew, Miss Cherry Humphreys, Mr. Matthew McNutt, Mr. J.D. Durfee, Mr. Barry Armacost, and many others. The name of the town is Grover's Corners, New Hampshire, just across the Massachusetts line. Longitude, 70 degrees, 37 minutes. Latitude, 42 degrees, 40 minutes. The first act shows a day in our town. The day is May 7th, 1901. The time is just before dawn. Well, I'd better show you how our town lies. Up here is Main Street. Way back there is the railway station. Tracks go that way. Polish towns across the tracks, and some Canuck families. Over there is the Congregational Church, Presbyterians across the street. Methodists and Unitarian are over there. Baptist is down in the hollow by the river. Catholic is over beyond the tracks. Right here is the town hall, post office combined. Jail's in the basement. Brian once made a speech from these very steps here. Along here is a row of stores, kitchen posts, and horse blocks in front of them. First automobile is going to be coming along in about 5 years. Belong to Banker Cartwright, our richest citizen. Lives in the big white house on the hill over there. Right over here is the grocery store. Over there is Mr. Morgan's drugstore. Most everybody in town manages to look into those two stores at least once a day. Public school's over yonder. High school's even further over. 9:15 mornings, noon times, and 3 o'clock afternoons. The whole town can hear the yelling and screaming coming from those schoolyards. This is our doctor's house. Doc Gibbs. This is the back door. And this is Mrs. Gibbs' garden. Corn, peas, beans, heliotrope, a lot of burdock. In those days, our newspaper came out twice a week. The Grover's Corners Sentinel. And this is Editor Webb's house. And this is Mrs. Webb's garden. Just like Mrs. Gibbs, only it's got a lot of sunflowers too. Right here is a big butternut tree. Nice town, you know what I mean? Nobody very remarkable ever come out of it as far as we know. Earliest tombstone up on the mountain, say 1670, 1680. They're Grovers and Cartwrights and Herseys and Gibbses. Same names around here now. Well, as I said, it's just about dawn. The only lights on in town are in a Polish cottage where a mother's just given birth to twins. And in the Joe Kroll house where Joe Jr. is getting up so as to deliver the paper. And in the depot where Shorty Hawkins is getting ready to flag the 5:45 for Boston. Naturally, out in the country all around, there have been lights on for some time now. Well, with the milking and so on. But town people sleep late. So, another day's begun. There's Doc Gibbs coming down Main Street now. Coming back from that baby case. And here comes his wife downstairs to make breakfast. Doc Gibbs died in 1930. The new hospital's named after him. Mrs. Gibbs died first, though. Long time ago, in fact. Went out to visit her daughter, Rebecca, who married an insurance man in Canton, Ohio, and died there. Pneumonia. But her body was brought back here. She's in the cemetery now, and with the whole mess of Gibbses and Herseys. She was Julia Hersey before she married Doc Gibbs in the Congregational Church over there. In our town, we like to know the facts about everyone. There comes Mrs. Webb downstairs to make breakfast, too. That's Doc Gibbs. Got that call at 1:30 this morning. And here comes Joe Kroll delivering Mr. Webb's sentiment.
Morning, Doc Gibbs. Morning, Joe. Someone been sick, Doc? No, just for our twins born over to Polish town. Want your paper now? Yes, I'll take it. Anything going on in the world since Wednesday?
Yes, sir. My school teacher, Miss Foster's getting married to a fellow in Concord.
I declare, How do you boys feel about that?
Well, of course it's none of my business. But I think if a person starts out to be a school teacher, she ought to stay one.
How's your knee, Joe?
Oh, fine, Doc. Never think about it anymore. Only like you said, I always tell them when it's gonna rain.
What's it telling you today? Is it gonna rain?
No, sir.
You sure?
Yes, sir.
Knee ever make a mistake?
No, sir.
Want to tell you something about that boy Joe Kroll there. Joe was awful bright. Graduated from his class here, head of the class. So he got a scholarship to Massachusetts Tech. Graduated head of his class there, too. It was all wrote up about in the Boston paper at the time. Going to be a great engineer, Joe was. But the war broke out, and he died in France. All that education for nothing.
Get up, Bessie! What's the matter with you today?
Here comes Howie Newsom delivering the milk.
Morning, Doc.
Morning, Howie.
Someone sick?
No, you spare twins born over the Mrs. Kroswowskis.
Twins, eh? This town is getting bigger every year.
You're gonna rain, Howie.
No, fine day. That will burn through. Come on, Bessie.
Hello, Bessie. How old is she, Howie?
Going on 17. Bessie saw mixed up about the route ever since the Lockhart stopped taking that quart of milk. She wants to leave a quart just the same every day. Keeps scolding me the whole trip.
Good morning, Howie.
Morning, Mrs. Gibbs. Doc's just coming down the street.
Is he? Seems like you're late today.
Yes. Something went wrong with the separator. Don't know what it was. Doc!
Howie.
Children, time to get up.
Come on, Bessie.
George, Rebecca. Everything all right, Frank?
Yes, I declare. Easy as kittens.
Bacon will be ready in a minute. Sit down and drink your coffee. You can catch a couple hours sleep this morning, can't you?
Mrs. Wentworth's coming at 11, but I guess you know what that's about, too. Her stomach ain't been what it ought to be.
All told, you won't get more than 3 hours sleep. I declare I don't know what's going to become of you. I do wish I could get you to go away someplace and take a rest. I think it would do you good.
Emily, time to get up. Wally, it's 7 o'clock.
I declare, you've got to speak to George. Seems like something's come over him lately. He's no help to me at all. I can't even get him to cut me some wood.
Is he sassy to you?
No, he just whines. All he thinks about is that baseball. George, Rebecca, you'll be late for school.
George, look sharp. Yes, Pop. Don't you hear your mother calling you? I guess I'll go upstairs and get 40 glints.
Wally, Emily, you'll be late for school. Wally, you watch yourself good, or I'll come up and do it myself.
Mom, what dress shall I wear? Don't make a noise. Your father's been out all night and needs his rest. I washed an arm of blue gingham for you special. Mom, I hate that dress. Oh, hush, with you. Every day I go to school dressed like a sick turkey. Now, Rebecca, you always look very nice. Mama, George is throwing so many. I'll come up and slap for both of you. That's what I'll do.
We've got a factory in our town, too. Hear it? Makes blankets. Cartwright's son, and it brung him a fortune.
Children, now I won't have it. Breakfast is just as good as any other meal, and I won't have you gobbling like wolves. Put in your book, Wally.
Ah, Ma, by 10 o'clock I'm going to know all about Canada.
You know the rule as well as I do. No books at table. As for me, I'd rather have my children healthy than breakfast.
I'm both, Mama. You know I am. I'm the brightest girl in school for my age. I have a wonderful memory.
Eat your breakfast.
I'm bright too when I look at my stamp collection.
arrested. Seems to me 25 cents a week's enough for a boy your age. I declare I don't know what you spend it on.
Oh, Mom, I got a lot of things to buy.
Strawberry phosphates, that's what you spend it on.
Why don't you have Rebecca comes to have so much money? She's got more than $1.
I've been saving it up gradual. Well, dear, I do think it's a good thing to spend some every now and then. Mama, do you know that I like most in the world? Do you? Money. Eat your breakfast. But there's no on that, but you don't have to posture I said in my best congratulations. Can you remember that? Yes, Ma. You let it go, Rebecca. Pick up your feet. Goodbye. No, go away, you. Go away. Here, chick, chick, chick. Bite, bite, bite. That's all you do. You don't belong to me. Where'd you come from? Don't be scared. Nobody's going to hurt you. Good morning, Myrtle. How's your cold?
Well, I still get that tickling feeling in my throat. I told Charles as I didn't know I'd go to choir practice today. 'Twouldn't be any use.
Have you tried singing over your voice?
Yes, but somehow I just can't do that and stay on the key. While I was resting myself, I thought I'd string some of these beans.
Here, let me help you. Beans have been good this year.
I've decided to put up 40 chords if it kills me. The children say they hate them, but I've noticed they can get them down all winter.
Myrtle Webb, I've got to tell you something because if I don't tell somebody, I'll burst.
By Julia Gibbs.
Here, give me some more of those beans. Myrtle, did one of those second-hand furniture men from Boston come to see you last Friday?
No.
Well, he called on me. And first, I thought he was a patient, waiting to see Doc Gibbs. And he wormed his way right into my parlor. And Myrtle Webb, he offered me $350 for Grandmother Wentworth's highboy as I'm sitting here.
Why, Julia Gibbs.
He did. That old thing, why, it was so big I didn't know where to put it. And I almost gave it to Cousin Hester Wilcox.
Well, you're going to take it, aren't you?
I don't know.
You don't know? $350. What's come over you?
Well, if I could get the doctor to take the money and go away someplace on a real trip, I'd sell it like that. You know, Myrtle, it's been the dream of my life to see Paris, France. For years, I've been telling myself that if we ever had the chance.
How does the doctor feel about it?
Well, I did beat around the bush a little and said that if I ever got a legacy, that's the way I'd put it, I'd make him take me someplace.
What do you say to that?
Well, you know how he is. I haven't heard a serious word out of him since I've known him. He said it might make him discontented with Grover's Corners to go traipsing all over Europe. Better let well enough alone, he says. Every 2 years, he takes a trip to the battlefields of the Civil War, and that's enough treat for anybody, he says.
Well, Mr. Webb just admires the way Dr. Gibbs knows everything about the Civil War. And Mr. Webb's of a good mind to give up Napoleon and move over to the Civil War. Only, Dr. Gibbs, being one of the greatest experts in the country, just makes him despair.
It's a fact. Dr. Gibbs is never so happy when he's at Antietam or Gettysburg. The times I've walked over those hills, Myrtle, stopping at every bush and pacing about like we were going to buy it.
Well, if that second-hand man's really serious about buying it, Julia, you sell it. And then you'll get to see Paris all right. Just keep dropping hints from time to time. That's how I got to see the Atlantic Ocean, you know.
Oh, I'm sorry I mentioned it. Only it seems to me that once in your life before you die, you ought to see a country country where they don't talk in English and don't even want to.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. And I'll have to interrupt again here. You see, we want a little more information about the town. Kind of a scientific account, you might say. So, I've asked Professor Willard of our state university to sketch in a few details. Professor Willard. May I introduce Professor Willard of our state university. A few brief notes. Thank you, Professor. Unfortunately, our time is limited.
Grover's Corners. Grover's Corners lies on the Pleistocene planet. Of the Appalachian Range. That's some of the oldest land in the world. We are very proud of that. A shelf of Devonian basalt crosses it with vestiges of Mesozoic shell and some sandstone outcroppings. But that's somewhat recent, 200, 300 million years old. Some highly interesting fossils have been found. I may say, unique fossils. 2 miles out of town in Silas Peckham's cow pasture. They can be seen at our museum in the university at any time. That is, at any reasonable time. Shut up. Should I read some of Professor Gruber's notes on the meteorological situation, mean precipitation, etc.?
Afraid we won't have time for that, Professor. We might have a few brief words on the history of man.
Yes, anthropological data. Early Amerindian stock of the Hachi tribes. No evidence before the 10th century of this era. Now, entirely disappeared. Possible traces in 3 families. Migration toward the end of the 17th century of English brachiocephalic blue-eyed stock for the most part.
And the population, Professor Wood.
Within the town limits, 2,640.
Just a moment, Professor.
Oh yes, indeed. The population at the moment is 2,642. The postal districts brings in 507 more, making a total of 3,149. Mortality and birth rates constant. By McPherson's gauge, 6.032.
Thank you, Professor Willard. We're all very much obliged to you, I'm sure.
Not at all, sir. Not at all.
This way, Professor, and thank you again. Now for the political and social report. Editor Webb. Oh, Mr. Webb.
He'll be here in a minute. He just cut his hand while he was eating an apple.
Thank you, Mrs. Webb.
Charles, everybody's waiting.
Mr. Webb's publisher and editor of the Grover's Corner Sentinel. That's our local paper, you know.
Well, I don't have to tell you that we're run here by a board of selectmen. All males vote at the age of 21. Women vote indirect. We're a sprinkling of middle class. 10% illiterate laborers. Politically, we're 85% Republican, 6% Democrat, 4% Socialist, rest indifferent. Religiously, we're 85% Protestant, Catholic, 12%, rest indifferent.
Have you any comments, Mr. Webb?
Very ordinary town, if you ask me. Little better behaved than most. Probably a lot duller. But our young people like you here well enough. 90% of them graduating from high school settle down right here, even after they've been away to college.
Now, is there anyone in the audience who'd like to ask Editor Webb anything about the town?
Is there much drinking in Grover's Corner?
Well, ma'am, I don't know what you'd call much. Saturday night, some of the farmhands gather down at Ellery Greenhouse Stable and all or some. We've got one or two town drunks, but they have horses every time an evangelist comes to town. No, ma'am, I'd say liquor ain't a regular thing in the house. Except in the medicine chest, right good for a snake bite. Always was.
Is there anyone in town where the...
Come forward, will you? Where we can all hear you. What was that you were saying?
Is there anyone in the town aware of the social injustice and industrial inequality?
Oh, yes. Seems like everybody is. Something terrible. They're always talking about who's rich and who's poor.
Then why don't they do something about it?
Well, I don't know. Seems like we're all searching for a way that the diligent and sensible can rise to the top. The lazy and quarrelsome can sink to the bottom. But until we find it, we try as hard as we can to help those that can't help themselves. And those that can, we leave well enough alone. Are there any other questions?
Mr. Webb! Mr. Webb! Is there any culture or love of beauty in Grover's Corner?
Well, ma'am, very much. Not the way you mean. Come to think of it, there are some girls that play piano at high school commencement. They ain't happy about it. No, ma'am, there ain't much culture. But maybe this is the place to tell you that we've got a lot of pleasures of a kind here. We like watching the sun come up in the morning and going down again in the evening. And we like to watch the birds. We all spend a lot of time doing that. And we like to watch the seasons. Everybody knows when they change. Those other things, oh man. Robinson Crusoe in the Bible and Hamilton's logo, we all know them. And Whistler's mother, that's about as far as we go.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Now we'll go back to the town. It's early afternoon. All 2,642 have had their dinners, and all the dishes have been washed. Doc Gibbs is in his office, tapping people and making them say, "Ah," and Mr. Webb's over there cutting his lawn. 1 man in 10 thinks it's a privilege to push his own lawnmower. No, sir. It's later than I thought. There are the children coming home from school already.
I can't, Louise. I've got to go home and help my mother. I promised.
you are today.
Papa, you're terrible. 1 minute you tell me to stand up straight, the next you call me names. I just don't listen to you.
Well, golly, I never got a kiss from such a fine lady before.
Excuse me, Mrs. Forrest.
Go play the field, young man. No business playing ball on Main Street.
Hello, Emily.
Hello.
Fine speech you made in class today.
Well, I was really ready to make a speech about the Monroe Doctrine, but at the last minute, Miss Corcoran made me talk about the Louisiana Purchase instead. I worked an awful long time at those.
Gee, it's funny, Emily. Now, from my window up there, I can see your head nights when you're doing homework up in your room.
Why, can you?
You certainly do stick to it, don't you, Emily? I don't see how you can sit that long.
Well, I always feel it's something you have to go through.
Yeah,
I don't mind it, really. It passes the time.
yeah. What do you think, Emily? Me and you could get kind of a telegraph from your window to mine. And once in a while, when I have a problem on one of those algebra problems, you could give me a hint or two about it. Not the answers, of course not. Just a hint.
Well, I think hints are loud. So if you get stuck, George, you whistle to me, and I'll give you some hints.
You're just naturally bright, Emily, I guess.
Figure that it's just the way a person's born.
Yep. You see, I want to be a farmer when I grow up. And Uncle Luke says, whenever I'm ready, I can just come over and work on this farm. And if I'm any good, I can just gradually have it.
You mean the house and everything?
Yeah. Well, thanks, Emily. I gotta get out to the baseball field. Thanks a lot for the talk. Good afternoon, Miss Webb.
Good afternoon, George.
So long, Emily.
So long, George.
Emily, come and help me string these beans for the winter. George Gibbs let himself have a real conversation, didn't he? Why, he's growing up. How old would George be?
I don't know.
Let's see. He must be almost 16.
Mama, I made a speech in class today, and I was very good.
You must recite it to your father at supper. What was it about?
The Louisiana Purchase. It was like silk off the spool. I'm going to make speeches all my life. Mama, are these big enough?
Try and get them a little bigger if you can.
Mama, you answer me a question serious.
Seriously, dear? Not serious.
Seriously, will you?
Of course I will.
Mama, am I good looking?
Yes, of course you are. All my children have got good features. I'd be ashamed if they hadn't.
Mama, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, am I pretty?
I already told you, yes. Now that's enough of that. You have a nice, young, pretty face. I never heard of such foolishness.
Mama, were you pretty?
Yes, I was, if I do say it. I was the prettiest girl in town, next to Mammy Cartwright.
But Mama, you've got to say something about me. Am I pretty enough to get anybody, to get people interested in me?
Now that's enough of that, Emily. You make me tired. You have a pretty enough face for all normal purposes. Come along now and bring that bowl with you.
Mama, you're no help at all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There are some more things we want to explore about this town. I think this is a good time to tell you that the Cartwright interest had begun building a new bank in Grover's Corners. Had to go to Vermont for the marble, sorry to say. And they've asked a friend of mine what they should put in the cornerstone for people to dig up 1,000 years from now. Of course, they put in a copy of the New York Times and a copy of Mr. Webb's Sentinel. We were kind of interested in this because some scientific fellows have found a way of painting all that reading matter with a glue, silicate glue. That'll make it keep 1,000, 2,000 years. We're putting in the Bible, a copy of William Shakespeare's plays, and the Constitution of the United States. What do you say, folks? What do you think? You know, Babylon once had 2 million people in it. Yet all we know about them is the names of the kings and some contracts for the sale of wheat and contracts for the sale of slaves. Yet every night, all those families sat down to supper. And the father came home from work, and the smoke went up the chimney. Same's here. And even in Greece and Rome, all we know about the real life of the people is what we can piece together out of the joking poems and the comedies they wrote for the theater back then. So, I'm going to have a copy of this play put in the cornerstone, so people 1,000 years from now will know a few simple facts about it. More than the Treaty of Versailles and the Lindbergh flight. See what I mean? So, people 1,000 years from now. This is the way we were in the provinces north of New York at the beginning of the 20th century. This is the way we were in our growing up, and in our marrying, and in our living, and in our dying.
Let's see the tie that binds our hearts in Christian love.
Well, a good deal of time's gone by. It's evening. You can hear choir practice going on in the Congregational Church. The children are home doing their schoolwork. The day's running down like a tired clock.
Now look here, everybody. Music was made for pleasure. Softer, softer. Get it out of your head. Get it out of your head. That music's good only when it's played loud. You leave loudness to the Methodist. You couldn't beat them even if you wanted to. Now again, tenors.
Emily.
Hello.
Hello.
I can't work it all. Moonlight's so terrible.
Did you get the third problem?
Which?
The third.
Why, yes, George. That's the easiest one of them all.
I don't see it. Did you give me a hint?
I'll tell you one thing. The answer's in yards.
Oh, in yards. What do you mean?
In square yards.
In square yards.
Yes, George. Don't you see?
Yeah?
In square yards of wallpaper.
Oh, well, oh, thanks, Emily. Thanks.
You're welcome. My, isn't Moonlight terrible? Choir practice going on? I think if you hold your breath, you could hear the train all the way to Kentucky. Hear it?
Well, what do you know?
Well, I guess I better go back and try to work.
Thanks a lot, Emily. Night.
Good night.
Before I forget it, how many of you will be able to come in Tuesday afternoon and sing at Fred Hershey's wedding? Show your hand. That'll be fine. That'll be right nice. We'll do the same music we did for Jane Bridges last month. And now we'll do I Thou Weary and Thou Language. It's a question, ladies and gentlemen. Make it tough. Ready?
Oh, George, can you come down here for a second? Yes, Pop. Sit down, son. I'll only keep you a minute. How old are you, son?
Well, I'm 16. Almost 17.
And what do you plan on doing after school's over?
Well, you know, Pop, I want to work on Uncle Luke's farm.
And you'll be willing, will you, to get up early and to milk and feed the stock and to hoe and hay all day?
Well, yeah. What do you mean?
Well, I was in my office today, George. I heard a funny sound. And what do you think it was? It was your mother, and she's chopping wood. There you see your mother getting up early and cooking and ironing all day, and she still has to go out in that backyard and chop wood. I guess she just got tired of asking you. She's decided it'd be easier for herself to do it. And you run off and play baseball like she's some hired girl we keep around the house. But that we don't like very much. Well, I knew all I had to do was call your attention to it. Oh, don't have a handkerchief for you, son. That's okay, Bob. I decided to raise your spending money 25 cents a week. Not, of course, for chopping wood for your mother, because that's a gift you give her. But because you're getting older, and I reckon there's lots of things you can spend with it.
Thanks, Pop.
Tomorrow's your payday. You can count on it. I suppose Rebecca will probably want some more, too. I wonder what could happen to your mother. Choir practice never this late before.
Oh, Pa, it's only 8:30.
I don't know why she don't choir anyway. She hasn't any more voice than an old crow. Traipsing around the stage this time of night. About time you retired, don't you think?
Yes, Pa.
Good night, Martha. Good night,
Mr.
Mr.
Webb,
Foster.
I know you want to put it in the paper.
My wife.
Good night, Irma.
Real nice choir practice, wasn't it? Why, Myrtle Webb, look at that moon, will you? Tisk, tisk, tisk. Potato weather for sure.
Naturally, I didn't want to say a word about it in front of those others, but now we're alone. Really, it's the worst scandal that ever was in this town.
What?
Simon Stinson.
Now, Luella.
Like Julia, to have the organist of a church drinking drunk year after year. You know he was drunk tonight.
Now, Luella. We all know about his struggles. And we all know what Mr. Stimson has been through. And Dr. Ferguson knows too. And if Dr. Ferguson keeps him on there in his job, the only thing the rest of us can do is just not to notice it.
Not to notice it, but it's getting worse!
No, it isn't, Luella. It's getting better. I've been in that choir twice as long as you have, and it doesn't happen anywhere near so often. I hate to go to bed on a night like this. I'd better hurry. Those children will be up till all hours. Good night.
Night.
Can you get home safe, Luella?
It's as bright as day. I can see Mr. Stone's going out the window now. You think we've been to a dance the way the men folk carry on?
Well, we had a real nice time.
You're late enough.
Why, Frank, it ain't any later than usual.
And you stopping at the corner to gossip with a lot of hens.
Now, Frank, don't be grouchy. Come out and smell the heliotrope in the moonlight. What did you do all the time I was away?
Oh, I read as usual. What were your girls gossiping about tonight, anyway?
Well, believe me, Frank, there is something to gossip about.
Simon Simpson foregone him, was he?
Worst I've ever seen him. How will that end? Dr. Ferguson can't forgive him forever.
I guess I know more about Simon's affairs than anybody else in town. Some people ain't made for small town life. And I don't know how that'll end, but there's nothing we can do about it but just leave it alone. Come on, get in.
No, not yet. Frank, I'm worried about you.
What are you so worried about?
I think it's my duty to see to it that you get a real rest and change. And if I get that legacy, well, I'm going to insist on it.
Now, Julia, there's no sense going over this again.
Frank, you're just unreasonable.
Come on, get in. Before you know it, you'll catch a cold. I gave George a piece of my mind tonight, and I reckon you'll have your wood chopped for a while anyway. Now start getting upstairs.
Oh dear, there's always so many things to pick up, seems like. You know, Frank, Mrs. Fairchild always locks her front door every night. All those people up that part of town do.
You're always spoiling everything.
Well, let me look just a minute.
Go use your own window.
I did, but there's no moon there. George, do you know what I think? Do you? I think maybe the moon's getting nearer and nearer, and there'll be a big explosion.
Rebecca, you don't know anything. If the moon was getting any close to the earth, a man that sits up all night with a telescope, he'd see it first, and he'd tell about it. It'd be all in the newspapers.
George, is the moon shining on South America, Canada, and half the whole world?
Well, probably is.
$9:30. Most of the lights are out. No, there's Constable Warren trying a few doors on Main Street. And here comes Editor Webb after putting his newspaper to bed.
Good evening, Bill. Good evening, Miss Webb. Quite a mood. Yeah. All quiet tonight? Simon Simpson's rolling around a little. Just saw his wife moving out to hunt for him. So I looked the other way. There he is now. Town seems to have settled down pretty well for the night. Guess we should too, Simon. Night.
I don't know how that's going to end, Mr. Webb.
Well, he's seen a peck of trouble. One thing after another. Oh, Bill, you see my boy smoking cigarettes. Could you give him a word? He thinks a lot of it, Bill.
I don't think he smokes no cigarettes, Mr. Webb. This way is not more than 2 or 3 a year.
Well, I hope not. Thanks, Bill.
Good night, Mr. Webb.
Good night. Who's that? Is that you, Myrtle?
No, it's me, Papa.
Why aren't you in bed?
I don't know. I just can't sleep yet. The moonlight's so wonderful. And smell Mrs. Gibbs' heliotrope. Can you smell it?
Yes. Having any troubles on your mind, have you, Emily?
Troubles, Papa? No.
Well, enjoy yourself. Don't let your mother catch you. Good night, Emily.
Good night, Papa.
I never told you about that letter Jane Prophet got from her minister when she was sick. He wrote to
That's the end of the first act, friends. Spot, please. This time, 3 years have gone by, friends. Yes, the sun's come up over 1,000 times. Summers and winters have cracked the mountains a little bit more, and the rains have brought down some dirt. Some babies that weren't born before have begun talking regular sentences already. And some people who thought they were right young and spry have noticed they can't bound up a flight of stairs like they used to, without their heart fluttering a little. All that can happen in 1,000 days. Nature's been pushing and contriving in other ways, too. A number of young people fell in love and got married. Yes, a mountain got bit away a few fractions of an inch. Millions of gallons of water went by the mill. And here and there, a new home was set up under a roof. Most everybody in the world gets married. You know what I mean? In our town, there aren't hardly any exceptions. Most everybody in the world climbs into their graves married. The first act was called The Daily Life. This act is called Love and Marriage. There's another act coming after this. And I reckon you can guess what that's all about. So, it's 3 years later. It's 1904. It's July 7th, just after high school commencement. That's the time most of our young people jump up and get married. As soon as they pass their last examinations in solid geometry and Cicero's orations, looks like they feel themselves fit to be married. It's early morning. Only this time it's been thundering and pouring. Mrs. Webb's garden and Mrs. Gibbs here, drenched. All those bean poles and pea vines, drenched. All yesterday along Main Street there looked like curtains being blown along. May begin to get it any minute. There you can hear the 5:45 for Boston. And there come Mrs. Gibbs and Mrs. Webb. I don't have to point out to the women in my audience that those two ladies they see before them, both those ladies cook 3 meals a day. And no summer vacation. They brought up 2 children apiece, washed, cleaned the house, cooked, and never a nervous breakdown. It's like what one of those Middle West poets used to say. You've got to love life to have life. And you've got to have life to love life. It's what they call a vicious circle.
Get up, Bessie!
Here comes Howie Newsom delivering the milk, and there's Cy Kroll delivering the paper like his brother before him.
Morning, Howie.
Morning, Cy. Anything in the papers I ought to know?
Nothing much except news about the best baseball pitcher Grover's Corners ever had, George Gibbs.
Reckon he is.
He could hit and run bases, too.
Yep. Mighty fine ball player. Whoa, Bessie. I guess I can stop and talk you from the mind, too.
I don't see how I could give up a thing like that just to get married. Would you, Howie?
Can't tell, Cy. Never had no talent that way. You're up early, Bill.
Well, seeing if there's anything I can do to prevent a flood. River's been rising all night.
Cy Kroll's all worked up about George Gibbs retiring from baseball here.
That's the way it goes. Back in 84, we had a ball player. Si, even George Gibbs couldn't touch him. Name was Hank Todd. Went down to man and become a person. Wonderful ball player. Howie, how does the weather look to you?
Oh, think bad. Think maybe it'll clear up for good.
Good morning, Howie. You think it's going to rain?
Morning, Mrs. How much did you want today?
I'm going to have a house full of relations, Howie. Looks to me like I'll need 3 of milk and 2 of cream.
My wife says to tell you, we both hope they'll be very happy, Mrs. Gibbs. No, they will.
Thanks a lot, Howie. Tell your wife I hope she gets there to the wedding.
Yes, she'll be there. She'll be there if she can. Morning, Mrs. Webb.
Good morning, Mr. Newsom. I told you 4 quarts of milk, but I hope you can spare me another.
Yes, and the 2 of cream.
You think it's going to rain?
Just saying to Mrs. Gibbs how it might lighten up. Mrs. Newsom told me to tell you we both hope they'll be very happy, Mrs. Webb. No, they will.
Thank you, and thank Mrs. Newsom for me too. And we're counting on seeing you at the wedding.
Yes, we'll be there. Couldn't miss that. Come on, Bessie.
Well, Mom, the day's come. You're losing one of your chicks.
And Frank Gibbs, don't you say another word. I feel like crying every minute. Sit down and drink your coffee.
The groom's up shaving himself, only there ain't an awful lot to shave. Whistling and singing like he's glad please. Every now and then he says, I do, to the mirror. But it sure don't sound very convincing to me.
I declare, Frank, I don't know how he'll get along. I've arranged his clothes and seen to it he's put warm things on. Frank, they're too young. He'll catch his death of cold within a week.
I was remembering my wedding morning, Julia.
Now, don't start that again, Frank.
I was the scariest young fellow in the state of New Hampshire. And when I saw you walking down that aisle, I thought you were the prettiest girl I'd ever seen. Only trouble was, I'd never seen you before. There I was in that congregational church, marrying a total stranger.
And how do you think I felt? Frank, weddings are perfectly awful things. Farces, that's what they are. Here, I've made something for you.
Why, Julia Hershey, French toast.
Tain't hard to make, and I had to do something.
How'd you sleep last night, Julia?
Well, I heard a lot of the hours struck off.
Yes, I get a shock every time I think of George setting out to be a family man. That great gangling thing. You know, Julia, there's nothing worse in the world than a son. The relationship between a father and a son is the darndest awkwardest thing.
No, mother and daughter's no picnic either, let me tell you.
They'll have a lot of troubles, I suppose, but that ain't any of our business. Everybody has the right to their own troubles.
Yes, people are meant to go through life 2 by 2. Tain't natural to be lonesome.
You know what I was scared of when I married you, Julia?
Oh, go along with you.
I was afraid we wouldn't have material for conversation more than lasts a couple of weeks. I was afraid we'd run out and eat our meals in silence. Well, you and I, we've been conversing for 20 years now.
I could stir her out upstairs?
No. Only Dad here she ain't up managing everybody else's business. She's hiding in her room. I got the impression she's crying.
Land sakes, this has got to stop. Rebecca, Rebecca, come and get your breakfast.
Morning, everybody. Only 5 more hours to live.
George Gibbs, where are you going?
I was just stepping across the grass to see my girl.
George Gibbs, it's raining torrents. You put on your overshoes. You don't go out of this house without you prepared for it.
Oh, Ma, it's just a step.
George, you'll catch a death of cold and cough all through the service.
George, you do as your mother tells you.
From tomorrow on, you can kill yourself in all weathers. But while you're in my house, you live wisely, thank you. Maybe Mrs. Webb isn't used to callers at 7 in the morning. Here, take a cup of coffee first.
Back in a minute. Morning, Mother Webb.
Goodness, you startled me, George. Now, you can come in a minute out of the wet, but you know I can't ask you anything.
Why not?
You know as well as I do. The groom's not supposed to see his bride on his wedding day. Not until he sees her in the church.
Oh, that's just superstition. Morning, Spud.
Morning, George.
You don't believe in all that superstition stuff, do you?
There's a lot of common sense in some superstitions.
Millions have followed it, George, and you don't want to be the first to fly in the face of custom.
How's Emily?
She isn't up yet. I haven't heard a sound out of her.
Emily's asleep?
No wonder. We were up till all hours last night sewing and packing. Now, I'll tell you what I'll do. You sit down here a minute and drink your cup of coffee. And I'll go upstairs and see if she doesn't come down and surprise you. There's some bacon too, but don't be long about it.
Well, George. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Mr. Webb, what sense is there in a superstition like that?
Well, George, on our wedding day, girls apt to be quite nervous. You're thinking about clothes and one thing or another. Don't you think that's it, George?
Yeah, I never thought about that.
Girls apt to be very nervous on our wedding day.
You know, I wish a fellow could be married without all that marching up and down.
Every man that's ever lived has wished that, George. But it hasn't been any use. It's the women folk who've built up marriages, my boy. For a while now, they have it all their own. A man seems mighty small at a wedding. All those fine women standing shoulder to shoulder to make sure the knot's tied in a mighty public way.
Do you believe in it, don't you, Mr. Webb?
Oh, yes, yes. Don't misunderstand me, my boy. Marriage is a wonderful thing. Wonderful thing. And don't you forget that.
No, sir. Now, how old were you when you got married?
Well, George, I'd taken some time to go to college and settle down. And Mrs. Webb, she wasn't much older than I is. No, age hasn't got much to do with it. Not compared with other things.
What were you going to say, Mr. Webb?
Was I going to say something? George, I was thinking the other day of some advice my father gave me when I was going to get married. Charles, he said, Charles, start out early showing who's boss. Just give an order, even if it doesn't make any sense. So she'll learn to obey. And he also said, If there's anything about your wife that bothers you, her conversation, or anything, just get up and leave the house. That'll show her. And he also said, Charles, never let your wife know how much money you have. Never.
No, sir, I don't think I could.
So I took the opposite of my father's advice, and I've been happy ever since. And let that be a lesson to you, George. Never ask advice on personal matters. George, are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
What?
Chickens. Are you going to raise some chickens on your farm?
Well, Uncle Luke's not had much interest in it, but I thought...
Well, the other day, a book came into my office on the farming system of raising chickens. I want you to read it, George. I'm thinking of starting in a small way in the backyard, with an incubator in the basement.
Charles, are you talking about that old incubator again? I thought you two would be talking about things worthwhile.
Well, Myrtle, if you want to give the boys some good advice, I'll just go upstairs and leave you alone with them.
George, Emily's got to come downstairs and eat her breakfast. She sends you her love, but she doesn't want to lay eyes on you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Well, Myrtle, guess you don't know about that older superstition.
What do you mean, Charles?
Since the cavemen. No bridegroom should see his father-in-law on the day of the wedding.
Decisions. Then wish you're 70. You've been a lawyer for 50 years. That white-haired lady at your side has eaten over 50,000 meals with you. How do such things begin? George and Emily are going to show you now the conversation they had when they first knew that as the saying goes, they were meant for one another. But first, I want you to try and remember what it was like to have been very young. And particularly the days when you were first in love. When you were like a person sleepwalking and didn't quite see the street you were in and didn't quite hear everything that was said to you. You're just a little bit crazy. Will you remember that, please? Now, they'll be coming out of high school at about 3 o'clock. George has just been elected president of the junior class. And as it's June, that means he'll be president of the senior class all next year. And Emily's just been elected secretary and treasurer. I don't have to tell you how important that is. Yep. There they are coming down Main Street now.
Change? What do you mean?
Well, up until
Emily. I never thought such a thing would happen to me. I guess it's hard for a fellow not to have faults creeping to his character.
I always expect a man to be perfect, and I think he should be.
Well, I don't think it's possible to be perfect, Emily.
Well, my father is, and as far as I can see, your father is. There isn't any reason on earth why you shouldn't be too.
Well, I feel it's the other way around, Emily. Boys aren't actually good, but girls are.
Well, you might as well know right now that I'm not perfect. It isn't easy for a girl to be perfect as a man, because girls are more nervous. Now, I'm sorry I said all that about you. I don't know what made me say it.
Emily.
Now I can see it's not the truth at all, and I suddenly feel that it isn't important anyway.
Emily, you want to get an ice cream soda or something before you go home?
Thank you.
Hello, Stu. How are you, Mrs. Corcoran?
Hello, George. Hello, Emily. Well, you have. Why, Emily Webb, what you been crying about?
She had an awful scare, Mr. Morgan. She almost got ran over by that hardware store. Right. Everyone says, Tom Huckins drives like a crazy man.
Well, now, Emily, you take a drink of water. I tell you, you've got to look both ways before you cross Main Street these days. What'll you have?
I'll have a strawberry frosting. Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
No, Emily. Have a strawberry ice cream soda with me. Mr. Morgan, 2 strawberry ice cream sodas.
2 strawberry ice cream sodas. Yes, sir, yes, sir. There are over 125 horses in Grover's Corners this minute I'm speaking to you. The state inspector was in here yesterday, and now they're bringing in these automobiles. Why, I can remember when a dog would go to sleep all day in the middle of Main Street, and nothing come along to disturb him. There they are, enjoying. What can I do for you, Mrs. Ellis?
They're so expensive.
No, don't think of that. We're celebrating our election. You know what else I'm celebrating, Emily?
No.
I'm celebrating because I have a good friend who tells me all the things that ought to be told me.
George, please don't think about that. I don't know what made me say it.
No,
It's
Emily.
not true.
Emily, you stick to it. I'm glad you spoke to me the way you did. You'll see, I'm going to change so quick. You bet I will. And Emily, I want to ask you a favor. Well, if I go away to state agriculture school, think you could write me a letter every once in a while?
I certainly will. I certainly will, George. It certainly seems like being away for 3 years, you'd get out of touch with things. Maybe letters from Grover's Corners wouldn't be so interesting after a while. Grover's Corners isn't a very important place when you think of all New Hampshire, but I think it's a very nice town.
Oh, if they wouldn't come, and I wouldn't want to know everything that's happening here. I know that's true, Emily.
Well, I'll try to make my letters interesting.
You know, Emily, every time I meet a farmer, I ask him if he thinks it's important to go to state agriculture school, to be a good farmer.
Why, George!
Yeah, some even say it's a waste of time. You can get all those things anyway out of the pamphlets the government sends out. And Uncle Luke's getting pretty old. He's about ready for me to take over his farm. Tomorrow, if I could.
Why?
Yeah, like you said, being gone all that time, other places, meeting other people. Boy, if something like that can happen, I don't want to go away. I guess new people aren't any better than the old ones. Emily, I figure you're as good a friend I got. I don't need to go away to other places to meet other people.
Well, George, maybe it's very important for you to go and learn about all that cattle judging and soils and those things. Of course, I don't know.
Emily, I'm going to make up my mind right now. about that, Emily. About my character. All those things you said about me were true. Except there was one thing in it that wasn't so true. Well, when you said for a whole year I wasn't noticing anybody. And, well, you, for instance. You said you were watching me and everything I did. And meantime, I was doing the same to you. Well, sure, I always thought about you as one of the main people I thought about. I always made sure where you were sitting in the bleachers and who you were sitting with. And for the last 3 days now, I've been trying to walk home with you. Yesterday, I was at the wall, and you went and walked home with this girl.
George, life's awful funny. How could I have known that? What?
Listen, Emily, I'm going to tell you why I'm not going to state agriculture school. I feel that once you've found a person you're fond of, well, someone that's also interested enough to be interested in your character, well, I think that's just as important as school is. Even more so. That's what I think.
I think it's awful important, too.
Emily?
Yes, George?
Well, if I do make a big change, would you be? Could you be?
I am now, George. I always have been.
So I guess this is the important talk we've been having.
Yes, yes.
Just a minute and I'll walk you home. Mr. Morgan, I'll go home and get you the money to pay for this.
What's that?
Oh. What do you mean? Now, Mr. Morgan, I had a good reason. Here. Keep my gold watch till I come back.
That's all right, George. Keep your watch. I'll trust you.
It'll only take me 5 minutes.
I'll trust you 10 years, George. Not a day over. Got all over your shop, Emily?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Morgan. It was nothing.
I'm ready.
It's time to get on with the wedding. There are a lot of things to be said about a wedding. There are a lot of thoughts that go on during a wedding. We can't get them all into one wedding, naturally. And especially not one in Grover's Corners, where they're awfully plain and short. In this wedding, I play the minister. That gives me the right to say a few more things about it. For a while now, the play gets pretty serious. You see, some churches say that marriage is a sacrament. I don't quite know what that means, but I can guess. It's like what Mrs. Gibbs said a few minutes ago. People are made to go through life 2 by 2. This is a good wedding, but even at a good wedding, there's a lot of confusion way down deep. And we thought that ought to be in our play too. The real hero of this scene isn't on the stage at all. And you all know who that is.
It's like what one of those European fellas said. Every child born into this world is nature's attempt to make a perfect human being. Amen. We've seen nature pushing and contriving for some time now. We all know that nature's interested in quantity. But I think she's interested in quality as well. Amen. That's why I'm in the ministry. We can't forget all the other witnesses at this wedding. The ancestors. Well, that's all my sermon. It wasn't very long anyway.
I don't know why on earth I should be crying. I suppose there's nothing to cry about. It all came over me at breakfast this morning. There was Emily sitting and eating her breakfast as she's done for 17 years. And now she's going off to eat it in somebody else's house. I suppose that's it. And Emily, she suddenly said, I can't eat another mouthful. And she put her head down on the table and she cried. Oh, I've got to say it. You know, there's something downright cruel about sending our children out into marriage this way. I hope her girlfriends have told her a thing or two. It's cruel, I know, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything. I went into it blind in the back myself. This whole world's wrong. That's what's the matter. Here they come.
Hey, George! Hey, George, don't look so nervous.
All right. That's enough of that. That'll do. We used to have an awful lot of that kind of thing in the old days. Roman later. We're more civilized now, so they say.
George, what's the matter?
Mom, I don't want to grow old. Why is everybody pushing me so?
Why, George, you wanted it.
No, Mom, listen.
No, George. You're a man now.
No, Mom, listen to me. For the last time. All I want to do is be a fella.
No, George. If anyone should hear you, stop it. I'm ashamed of you.
Where's Emily? Oh, cheer up, Mom. I'm getting married.
Let me catch my breath a minute.
Now listen here, Mom. You say Thursday nights. Every Thursday night, me and Emily will come over to your place. What you crying for? Come on, we gotta get ready for this.
George, could you come here a minute? Oh, you're married the best young fellow in the whole world.
But Papa...
George, I'm giving you my daughter. You think you can take care of her?
I want to try. Emily, I'll do my best. I love you, Emily. I need you.
Well, if you love me, help me. All I want is somebody to love me.
Emily, I will. I'll try.
And I mean forever. Do you hear? Forever and ever.
Come, they're waiting for us. You know everything will be all right.
Do you, George, take this woman Emily to be your wedded wife to have?
Perfectly lovely wedding. The loveliest wedding I ever saw. Oh, I do love a good wedding, don't you? Doesn't she make a lovely bride?
I do.
Do you, Emily, take this man George to be your wedded husband to have?
Oh, man, I think it's such a nice wedding. The wedding always wrong. Don't know why it is, but I always cry. I just like to see young people happy, don't you? Oh, I think it's lovely.
I've married on 200 couples in my day. Do I believe in it? I don't know. Have married then, millions of them. The cottage, the go-kart, the Sunday afternoon drives in the Ford, the first rheumatism, the grandchildren, the second rheumatism, the deathbed, the reading of the will. Once in 1,000 times it's interesting. Well, let's have Mendelssohn's Wedding March.
Aren't they a lovely couple? Oh, I've never been to such a nice wedding. I'm sure they'll be happy. I always say happiness, that's the great thing. The important thing is to be happy.
At the end of the second act, run Germany. Time, 9 years have gone by, friends. Summer 1913. Gradual changes in Grover's Corner. Horses are getting rarer. Farmers coming into town in Fords. Everybody locks their house doors that night now. Ain't been any burglars in town yet, but everybody's heard about them. On the whole, though, there's not much change in Grover's Corner. Yes, beautiful spot up here. Mountain laurel and lilacs. I often wonder why people like to be buried in Woodlawn and Brooklyn when they might pass the same time up here in New Hampshire. Over there are the old stones, 1670, 1680. Strong-minded people who come a long way to be independent. Summer folk walk around the tombstones laughing at the funny words on them. It don't do any harm. And genealogists come up from Boston, get paid by city folk for looking up their ancestors. They want to make sure they're daughters of the American Revolution and of the Mayflower. I guess that don't do any harm either. Wherever you come near the human race, there's layers and layers of nonsense. Over there are some Civil War veterans. Iron flags on their graves. New Hampshire boys. Had a notion that the Union ought to be kept together.
though they'd never seen more than 50 miles of it themselves. All they knew, friends, was the name, the United States of America. The United States of America. And they went and died about it. This here's the new part of the cemetery. Here's your friend, Mrs. Gibbs. And let me see, Simon Stimpson, organist at the Congregational Church. And here's Mrs. Soames, who enjoyed the wedding so you remember? A lot of others. Oh, and Editor Webb's boy, Wallace, whose appendix burst on a Boy Scout trip to Crawford Notch. Yes, an awful lot of sorrows quieted down around here. Relatives just wild with grief have brought their relatives up to this hill. And then time, and sunny days, and rainy days, and snow. We're all glad they're in a beautiful spot, and we're coming up here ourselves when our fit's over. Now, there are some things we all know, but we don't take them out and look at them very often. We all know that something's eternal. And it ain't houses. And it ain't names. And that ain't even the stars. We all know that something's eternal about every human being. Well, there are some living people. There's Joe Stoddard, our undertaker, supervising a new-made grave. And here's a Grover's Corners boy that left town to go out west.
Good afternoon, Joe Stoddard.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Let me see now. Do I know you?
I'm Sam Craig.
Gracious sakes alive. Of people. I should have known you'd be back for the funeral. You've been away a long time, Sam.
Yes, I've been away over 12 years now. I'm in business out in Buffalo. But I was in the East when I got news of my cousin's death. So I thought I'd combine things a little, come see the old home. You look well.
Yes. Yes. Can't complain. Very sad, our journey today, Sam.
Yes?
Yes, yes. I always say I hate to supervise when a young person is taken. They will be here in a few minutes now. My son is supervising at the home. I had to come here early today.
Old Farmer McCarty. Used to do chores for him after school. He had the lumbago.
Yes, we brought Farmer McCarty here a number of years ago now.
Why? This is my Aunt Julia. I've forgotten she... Of course.
Yes. Dr. Gibbs lost his wife 3 years ago, about this time. And today's another pretty bad blow for him also.
That's my sister Carrie's boy, Sam Craig.
I'm always uncomfortable when they're around.
Simon.
Do they choose their own verses much, Joe?
No. Not usual. Only the bereaved ones pick a verse.
Doesn't sound like Aunt Julia. There aren't many of those Hersey sisters left now, are there? Let me see. I want to look at my mother's and father's.
Over there with the Craigs, Avenue Ave.
Organist at the church, wasn't he? Drank a lot, we used to say.
Nobody was supposed to know about it. He was in a peck of trouble. Took his own life, you know. Hung himself in the attic. They tried to hush it up, but of course, it got around. He chose his own epitaph. You can see it down there. It ain't a verse exactly.
Why, it's just some notes of music. What is it?
I wouldn't know. It was brought up in the Boston papers at the time.
Joe, what did she die of?
Who?
My cousin.
Didn't you know? had some trouble bringing a child into the world. Towards her second, though, there is a little boy about 4 years old.
The grave's going to be up there?
Yes, there ain't much more room left among the gipsies, so they're building a whole new gift section over by B. You will excuse me now. I see they're coming.
Who is it, Julia?
It's my daughter-in-law, Emily Webb.
Well, I declare, the road up here must have been awful muddy. What did she die of, Julia?
In childbirth.
Childbirth. I'd forgotten all about that. My, wasn't life awful and wonderful.
Wonderful, was it?
Simon, now remember.
I remember Emily's wedding. Wasn't it a lovely wedding? And I remember her reading the class poem at graduation exercises. Emily was one of the brightest girls ever graduated from high school. I've heard Principal Wilkins say so time after time. I called on them at their new farm just before I died. Perfectly beautiful farm. It's on the same road we lived on.
Yep, right smart farm.
Let's meet a tired band, our hearts in Christian love, the fellowship of kindred mind is like to that of love.
I always liked that hymn. I was hoping they'd sing a hymn.
Hello.
Hello, Emily.
Hello, Miss Gibbs.
Hello, Mother Gibbs.
Emily,
Hello. It's raining.
yes, they'll be gone soon, dear. Just rest yourself.
It seems thousands and thousands of years since Papa remembered that was my favorite hymn. Oh, I wish I'd been here a long time. I don't like being new here. How do you do, Mr. Stimson?
How do you do, Emily?
Mother Gibbs, George and I have made that farm just the best place you ever saw. We thought about you all the time. We wanted to show you the new barn and a great long cement drinking fountain for the stock. We bought that out of the money you left us.
I did?
Yes, Mother Gibbs, don't you remember? The legacy you left us. Why, it was over $350.
Yes, Emily.
Well, there's a patent device on the fountain, so it never overflows, and it never goes below a certain mark they have there. It's fine. It won't be the same to George without me, but it's a lovely farm. A lot of people don't understand, do they?
No, dear, not very much.
They're sort of shut up in little boxes. I feel as though I knew them last 1,000 years ago. My little boy is spending the day at Mr. Carter's. Oh, Mr. Carter! My little boy is spending the day at your house.
Yes, kid.
Yes, he loves it there. Mother Gibbs, we have a Ford, too. Never gives us any trouble. I don't drive, though. Mother Gibbs, when does this feeling go away of being one of them? How long does it
Wait. Wait and be patient.
I know. Look, they're finished. They're going.
Wait.
Look,
Yes, of course you can.
I can go back and live all those days over again. Why not?
All I can say is, Emily, don't.
But it's true, isn't it? I can go back there again.
Yes, some have tried, but they soon come back.
Emily, don't. It's not what you think it'd be.
But I won't choose a sad day. I'll choose a happy one. I'll choose the day I first knew that I loved George. Why should that be painful?
You not only live it, but you watch yourself living it.
Yes?
And as you watch it, you see the thing that they down there never know. You see the future. You know what's going to happen afterwards.
But is that painful? Why?
That's not the only reason why you shouldn't do it, Emily. When you've been here longer, you'll see that our life here is to forget all that and think only of what's ahead and be ready for what's ahead. When you've been here longer, you'll understand.
But Mother Gibbs, how can I ever forget that life? It's all I know. It's all I have.
Oh, Emily, it isn't wise. Really, it isn't.
But it's a thing I must know for myself. I'll choose a happy day anyway.
No. At least choose an unimportant day. Choose the least important day of your life. It will be important enough.
Well, then it can't be since I was married, or since the baby was born. I can choose a birthday at least, can't I? I choose my 12th birthday.
All right. February 11th, 1899. A Tuesday. Do you want any special time of day?
Oh, I want the whole day.
We'll begin at dawn. It had been snowing for several days, but it had stopped the night before, and they began clearing the road. The sun was coming up.
There's Main Street. And there's Mr. Morgan's drugstore before he changed it. And there's the livery stable.
Yes, this is 14 years ago, 1899.
Oh, that's the town I knew as a little girl. Look, there's the old white fence that used to be around our house. Oh, I'd forgotten that. I loved it so. Are they inside?
Yes. Your mother will be coming downstairs in a minute to make breakfast.
Will she?
And your father had been away for several days. You remember?
No.
He'd been back to his college in western New York, at Clinton. He came back on the early morning train.
There's Howie Newsom, and there's our policeman. But he's dead. He died.
Whoa! Bessie! Morning, Bill!
Morning, Howie.
You're up early!
Been rescuing a party. Found by Polish Town. Got drunk and lay on the snowdrift. Thought he was in bed when I shook him.
Look, there's Joe Kroll.
Morning, Howie. Morning, Bill.
Children, it's time to get up.
Mama, I'm here. Oh, how young Mama looks. I didn't know Mama was ever that young.
You can come and get dressed by the kitchen fire if you like, but hurry.
Good morning, Mr. Newsom. Oh, it's cold.
10 below by my barn, Mrs. Webb.
morning, Bill.
Morning, Miss Webb. You're up early.
Yes, been back to my old college in New York State. Been any problems here?
Well, I was called up this morning to rescue a Polish fella. Thought he froze to death, he was.
We must get it in the paper.
Not much.
Good morning, Mother.
How'd it go, Charles?
Oh, fine, I guess. I told him a few things. Everything all right here?
Can't think of anything that happened special. Bed red cold. Howie Newsom said it was 10 below over to his barn.
Well, it's colder than that at Hamilton College. Students' ears are falling off. It ain't Christian. Paper have any mistakes in it?
None that I noticed. Copy's ready when you want it. Charles, don't forget, it's Emily's birthday. Did you remember to get her anything?
Yes, I've got something right here. Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
Charles, don't interrupt her now. She's slow enough as it is. You can see her at breakfast. Children, hurry up. Now, I don't want to call you again.
I can't bear it. They're so young and beautiful. Why did they ever have to grow old? Mama, I'm here. I love you all. Everything. I can't look at everything hard enough. Can I go in? Good morning, Mama.
Well, now, dear, a very happy birthday to my girl and many happy returns. There are some surprises waiting for you on the kitchen table.
Oh, Mama, you shouldn't have. I can't.
But birthday or no birthday, I want you to eat your breakfast good and slow. It'll keep you warm on a cold day, and I want you to grow up to be a good, strong girl. That in the blue paper is from your Aunt Carrie. And I reckon you can guess who brought you the postcard album. Found it on the doorstep when I brought in the milk. George Gibbs. Must have come over in the cold pretty early. Right nice of him.
Oh, George, I'd forgotten it.
Chew that bacon good and slow.
Oh, Mama, just look at me for 1 minute as though you really saw me. Mama, 14 years have gone by. I'm dead, Mama. You're a grandmother. Mama, I married George Gibbs. Wally's dead, too. His appendix burst on a camping trip to North Conway. We felt just terrible about it. Don't you remember? But just for a moment, we're all happy. Just for a moment, we're together. Let's realize you. Do any human beings ever realize life when they live it? Every minute?
No. The saints and poets, maybe. They do some.
I'm ready to go back.
Were you happy?
No, I should have listened to you. That's all human beings are. Just blind people.
Look, it's clearing up. The stars are coming out.
Oh, Mr. Stimson, I should have listened to them.
Yes, now you know. Now you know. That's what it was to be alive. To move about in a cloud of ignorance. To go up and down, trampling on the feelings of those about you. To spend and waste time as though you had a million years. To be always at the mercy of one self-centered passion or another. Now you know. That's the happy existence you want to go back to. Ignorance and blindness.
Simon Stimson, that ain't the whole truth and you know it. Emily, look at that star. I forget its name.
My boy Joe was a sailor, knew them all. He would sit on the porch evenings and tell them all by name. Yes, sir, wonderful. A star's mighty good company.
Yes, tis.
Here's one of them coming.
That's strange. Taking no time for one man to be here. Goodness sakes.
Mother Gibbs, it's George. It's George.
And my boy Joe who knew the stars. He used to say it took millions of years for the speck of light to get to the earth. Don't seem like a body could believe it, but that's what he used to say. Millions of years.
Goodness, that ain't no way to be home. Hey, he ought to be home.
Mother Gibbs? Yes. Live people don't understand, do they?
No, dear, they don't understand.
Most everybody's asleep in Grover's Corners. There are a few lights on. Shorty Hawkins down at the depot is just watching the Albany train go by. And someone's setting up late and talking at the livery stable. Yes, it's clearing up. There are the stars doing their old crisscross journeys in the sky. The scholars haven't settled the matter yet, but they seem to think there are no living beings up there. Just chalk or fire. Only, this one's straining away. Straining away all the time to make something of itself. The strain's so bad that every 16 hours, everybody lies down and gets a rest. "10:30 in Grover's Corners. You get a good night's rest too. Good night.